This morning I'm going to talk about what eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil has led to. All right. Now, I want to start with Paul's words in 1 Corinthians 14 in verse 34. Let your women keep silent in the congregations, for it is not permitted unto them to speak, but they are commanded to be under obedience, as the Torah says. That's right. As the Torah says. Where does it say it in the Torah? I'll show you in just a minute. And if they want to learn anything at all, not from the preacher, not from anybody else, but let them inquire of their husbands at home, for it is a shame for women to speak at the assembly. Now, what? Let me show you something here. We're going to go to Genesis. We're going to show right here, and Jehovah, not the Lord, never does it. It never said the Lord in the text, and this is the beginning of the Torah. This is what Paul was talking about. And Jehovah Elohim, not God, but Elohim, took the man and put him in the garden of Eden. Not Eden, Eden, to dress it and to keep it. And Jehovah commanded the man, saying, of all the trees of the garden you may freely eat, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that would be the knowledge of beautiful and adversity. All right, let's look at these words carefully. I haven't, pleasantness, prosperity, agreeable, good times, and bad, evil, disagreeable, malignant. All right? Pain, unhappiness, and misery, evil days of trial and hardship. All right, I think we've got the definitions correct here, so let's move along. So who did Jehovah speak to? Did he speak to Eve about this? Nope. He spoke to Adam before the creation of the woman. Okay? Now, let's go to the next chapter. Let's go look at the serpent's deception. Now the serpent was more subtle, shrewd, crafty, sensible than any beast of the field which Jehovah Elohim had made. And he said unto the woman, also, Elohim said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden. See. Wait a minute. Hold on, let's read it again. Because we don't want to read it the way King James does it. We want to read the way Hebrew says it. Yes, Elohim said, does not say not eat. Yes, Elohim said, you shall eat of every tree of the garden. That's a little bit different than what King James Version says. Yes, Jehovah said you may eat of every tree that is in the garden. That is the lie. That was the first lie ever spoken. She corrected him. And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, Elohim has said, You shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. Now, Jehovah did not say, Neither shall you touch it. Who told her that? Adam. We just read it. You can go look back at it again. He said, You shall not eat of it to Adam. He did not say you shall not touch it. But Adam told her, Don't even touch it. And the serpent said unto the woman, To die, for Elohim does know that in the day that you eat thereof, your eyes shall be open, and you shall be Elohim, knowing good or beautiful and calamity. That was the second lie. It hardly took any convincing at all. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, it was a desire to the eyes, very beautiful fruit. This should be a lesson to all women and all men. Not everything that is beautiful is beneficial. And a tree desired to make one wise. She took the fruit thereof and did eat. So she chose her husband's words. No, she chose a stranger's words, a foreigner's words, the serpent's words over her husband, just like that. Just like that. Which is why Paul said, if she wants to learn anything, she needs to learn from her husband at home. But I'll continue, and we're going to get more into the meat and potatoes here. And then she gave to her husband, to eat. Did he know what fruit it was? Paul said Eve was in the transgression and Adam was not. Now, then the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed themselves fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. See, at this point, it mattered not whether Adam was innocent or guilty. He could have been 100% innocent. The fact that he ate of it implanted something in him. The knowledge of good and tragedy. And so because of that, it would have to be experienced. But also because Adam was tricked. Adam was tricked. Eve was deceived. Adam was tricked. Just like somebody slipping a drug in your tea is what happened to Adam. But because I think personally because he was tricked. She was deceived, he was tricked. That the death penalty did not come on that particular day. But remember, a day is also 1,000 years to Elohim. And they heard the voice of Jehovah, not the Lord. Elohim, not God, walking in the garden, ruach of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Jehovah Elohim among the trees of the garden. And Jehovah Elohim called unto Adam and said unto him, Where are you? And he said, and he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. And he said, Who told you you were naked? How have you eaten of the tree where I commanded you, you shall not eat? And the man said, The woman whom you gave to me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. And Jehovah Elohim said unto the woman, What have you done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and she beguiled me to eat. Now, Jehovah Elohim said unto the serpent, Because you have done this, you are cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field, and upon your belly you will go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. And I will make you and the woman enemies. And that enemy, that rivalry is going to be between seed and seed. It is going to be between the seed that Jehovah chooses and the seed that the serpent chooses. That seed shall bruise your head, and you will bruise his heel. Now, bruising a heel is not a mortal wound, typically, but a blow to the head, very much so. Now, to the woman, he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow, your pain, and your toil during conception and pregnancy. In sorrow you shall bring forth children. A longing for a man. You will be longing for a husband. Today you have young women saying, and I quote, I don't need no man. And then of course when they get to 40 years old, they're crying and wailing on YouTube and TikTok and whatever else social media is available, wanting a man. They foolishly believed the lie that they didn't need a man. And then when their beauty started to fade away and men no longer looked at them but at the younger women, then they have attention deficit, as if the attention from men was like a drug. And now they're getting withdrawal symptoms because men don't look at them anymore when they're at that age. I don't care how pretty a woman thinks she's going to look at 40 years old, men are not going to look at them. Men are not going to give them attention. Now, remember what we just read, the words of Paul in 1 Corinthians 14. Let your women keep silence in the congregation, for it is permitted them not to speak, but they are commanded to obey, even also as the Torah says. They will learn anything they need to ask their husbands at home. Why? Because you saw what happened when she didn't check with her husband first. Now, we'll go to the last. And he shall have dominion, rule over you. There is no equality. Dominion, rule, control, have charge, have authority over you. He is your master, you women. But you don't want that. You pushed for women's rights. In the Western world, you pushed for women's rights even after the Soviet Revolution. So let me show you what happened in the Soviet Revolution. The Role of Women in Soviet Russia by Molly Wolanski. And this is how the Soviets tricked the women as well. The role of women changed dramatically over the course of history in Soviet Russia under different leaders and economic and physical conditions. Pre-revolution Russia was a very backwards, or was it, country that was far behind in industrialization and politics. Most other European countries were experimenting with constitutions and democracy, yet Russia still had serfdom and strong nobility. The industrial class rose up multiple times during World War I. They won, and Lenin took power and created Soviet communism. This liberated women. Or did it? That was what the claim was. Women bought into it and gave them opportunities to pursue careers as doctors, engineers, along with many other professions. Along with new career opportunities came new laws. Yes, this was before the women's movement in the United States. In 1918, legislature was created to try to weaken marriage and the family to create a unified society focused on the country and not the family. Here we go again. See, this happened in communist Russia before it happened in the West and the United States. But did the West and the United States look at Russia as a warning? Nope. In 1918, legislation was created to try to weaken marriage and the family to create a unified society focused on the country, not the family. The ability to perform marriages was taken away from the church. It should have never been given to the church. It was always the parents' responsibility of marriage, not the church, and most definitely not the state. And what did Western civilization? Western civilization did exactly the same thing and given solely to the state. With this set of laws came the right for either the man or a woman in a married couple to pursue divorce and win. Before that, only the man could pursue divorce. Even even in the Torah, only the man could pursue a divorce. And Yehoshua curtailed it sharply when he said, only in a case where she had committed a sexual sin. Woman could not divorce her husband. And is still not allowed under the Torah of Yehoshua. A woman is still not allowed to divorce her husband because she must be under his subjection. It is not equal. We just read that it's not equal. That the husband is supposed to have dominion over his wife, mastership over his wife. And if you don't believe it, let's go to well, we'll finish this right here, and then we want to go. I'm going to mess up if I don't go ahead and go right now. In fact, I think I already lost it. Well, then we'll go back here. Well, this set of laws can be right for either man or the woman in a married couple to pursue divorce and win. To feminist Alexandra Kollontai, this was great, and she saw no future in family structure and Soviet Russia. And look what happened to Russia after that. Their numbers dropped dramatically. Faster than that of the U.S., although the U.S. is following right in their footsteps. Although this legislation brought equality to marriage in principle, it didn't in practice, because equality in marriage is never possible. There is no such thing. Women were still expected to perform most domestic duties and have a job, as men saw it as below them to do housework or to do grocery shopping. The role of Soviet women in society in other areas were varied and depended on how conditions were at many aspects. So they promised equality for women, but in fact took away what remaining women's rights that they had under the Torah. See, the Torah said that a man was supposed to provide for his wife. That was his job. And if he was going to take on a second or third or fourth wife, he had to provide her the same amount before he took on more wives, the same amount that she had before. In other words, nothing was supposed to be taken away from her. But see, what the society of Satan does is it makes promises to women, equality. And then it takes away whatever the women had in the first place. Which is why we have what we have today. Now, today, in the United States, women are required to have a job and keep the house and all of that. And because of that, because of this, population has dropped. You can look at the statistics. I mean, we can go to see what the population decline in Western countries. All right. These are all, post-Soviet countries. Bulgaria, Serbia, Lithuania, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and on and on and on. And Russia and Germany, South Korea, Spain are all set to join the downward movement with the populations. So this is what the reduced population is what has happened. Now people will say, well, we need a reduced population. Well, that's not what it says here. All right, we'll go down. Okay. multiply. And right here. Now, after all of this, verse 128, no, this is before. Right. So, Elohim created man in his image. In the image of Elohim created he him, the male, created the male. He did not create the female in his image. In the image of Elohim, he created the male. Zakar is male. And female created he them. And Jehovah or Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply and fill. Malay in Hebrew means to fill the earth with people. Subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air, over every living thing that moves upon the face of the earth. Now, so, what we have is the serpent's words brought decline. So now we peaked, and now the world is declining because they took more of the words of the serpent, and now look what we have here. What is this? This is Fox News Channel. You see that? You never thought you'd see the day, did you? All right. Now, there are those people who are stuck in the politics of this world, who think that Donald Trump is going to save the United States and ultimately save the world. He is part and parcel of what is wrong with this world. President Trump once offered what he considered a great deal to Jordan King Abdullah II, control of Judea and Samaria, whose fake-Stinian population long sought to topple the monarchy. I thought I was going to have a heart attack, Abdullah. He was going to, as if he was the creator himself, this land belongs to Jehovah Elohim himself, and he is going to cause his heir to take control of it, his heir being Yehoshua. But Donald Trump says, no, we're going to give it to Israel's enemies. Okay? And then you claim to be right-wing Christians, still supporters of Donald Trump. Transgender people can use whatever bathroom they want. Pushing Sodom and Gomorrah upon the population. All right. Now we have a statement from President Joe Biden on the enactment of Uganda's well, you can read it for yourself. And this is directly from the White House, posted yesterday. The enactment of Uganda's Anti-Homosexuality Act is a tragic violation of universal human rights, one that is not worthy of the Ugandan people. This is quoted from the president of Sodom and Gomorrah. We'll just call it that. And one that jeopardizes the prospects of critical economic growth for the entire country. I join with the people around the world, including many in Uganda, in calling for this immediate repeal. No one should have to live in constant fear for their life or being subjected to violence and discrimination. It is wrong. And whatever. If you see, so this is a threat of economic sanctions against Uganda, trying to force other countries around the world to participate in Sodom and Gomorrah activity. And if you try to boycott such activity, MSNBC pundit says boycotting Target is economic terrorism. But apparently, rioting isn't terrorism to them, right? Now, furries are now angry with Ron DeSantis. Florida furry con bans minors from attending fetish convention in response to new legislation. Now, there are those of you who want Ron DeSantis to become the Republican candidate for president to save this country. You saw what happened when you got Donald Trump to be president, didn't you? Operation Warp Speed, red flag laws. The system will corrupt anyone who participates in it. Listen to me carefully. The system will corrupt anyone who participates in it, including you or myself. If I were to participate in this satanic system, I would be corrupted by it. It would be no different than taking of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, so to speak. What do I mean by participating in the system? Well, the first step into participating in the system that will destroy you as a person is to register to vote. That's the first step. And of course, when you take the final step, you end up like all of these other politicians who've been utterly corrupted by the system. So don't take that first step. Like Adam told Eve, don't even touch it. Okay? Now, I want to play something to you. I played this for you before, but it's worthwhile playing it again. If you want to understand how corrupt, how far advanced the corruption is with the President of the United States, all you have to do is listen to this. And please listen carefully. Listen to every word he says.
The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews, just understand, and don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say, that's called World War III.
The United States, together with our allies and partners, is going to begin training Ukrainian pilots in fourth-generation fighter aircraft, including F-16s, to strengthen Ukraine's Air Force as part of a long-term commitment to Ukraine's ability to defend itself.
What did we just listen to? Let's try again.
The idea
No, that's not what I want. Let's try again.
that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains.
The very idea that we're going to send offensive equipment like planes and tanks.
The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews. Just understand, and don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say. That's called World War III.
The United States, together with our allies and partners, is going to begin training Ukrainian pilots in fourth-generation fighter aircraft, including F-16s, to strengthen Ukraine's Air Force as part of a long-term commitment to Ukraine's ability to defend itself.
The idea.
All right. Now, if you want to, you can delude yourself into saying, well, that's not what he said in the first half of the video. Go right ahead. Go right ahead and be a fool if you want to. And you will not be ready for what's about to happen. Because you see, when mankind ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the last part, the evil, the finale is calamity, is tragedy. And this society, Western civilization, rose up into power and great prosperity. The first part of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and now it must suffer the latter part. And it's going to. And it will be World War III. It came out of your president's own mouth. Now, I want to point something out to you about something that was devised after World War II. Operation Unthinkable. You never heard of it, have you? Well, let's look at Operation Unthinkable. Was the name given to two related possible future war plans developed by the British Chiefs of Staff Committee against the USSR during 1945. The plans were never implemented. Does that mean it will never be implemented? My personal opinion is it is actually being implemented right now. The creation of the plans was ordered by British Prime Minister Winston Churchill in May 1945 and developed by the British Armed Forces Joint Planning Staff in May 1945 at the end of World War II in Europe. One plan assumed a surprise attack on Soviet forces stationed in Germany to impose the will of the United States and the British Empire on the Soviets. The will was qualified as a square deal for Poland, which would probably mean enforcing the recently signed Yalta Agreement. All right. The planners decided that without American help, the British would probably fail. The assessment signed by the Chief of Army Staff in the 9th of June 1945 concluded it would be beyond our power to win a quick but limited success, and we would be committed to a protracted war against heavy odds. The code name was now reused instead for a second plan, which was a defensive scenario, which the British were to defend against Soviet drive towards the North Sea and the Atlantic Ocean after the withdrawal of American forces from the continent. When the Labour Party acquired power by 1945, the 1945 general election, it ignored the draft plan. The study became the first Cold War-era contingency plan for war against the USSR. Both plans were very secret and were not made public until 1998, although a British spy for the Soviets, Guy Burgess, had revealed some details to the Soviets at the time. The initial primary goal of the operation was declared to impose upon Russia the will of the United States and the British Empire. Even though the will of these countries may be defined as no more than a square deal for Poland, that does not necessarily limit the military commitment. The Soviet Union is referred to as Russia throughout the document, a metonym that was common in the West throughout the Cold War. The chiefs of staff were concerned at both the enormous size of Soviet forces deployed in Europe at the end of the war and a perception that Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin was unreliable caused a Soviet threat to exist in Western Europe. The USSR had yet to launch its attacks on Japanese forces, so one of the assumptions in the report was the Soviets would instead ally with Japan if the Western Allies commenced hostilities. The hypothetical date for the start of the Allied invasion of the Soviet-held Europe was scheduled for July the 1st, 1945, 4 days before the United Kingdom's general elections. The plan assumed a surprise attack by as many as 47 British and American divisions in the area of Dresden, in the middle of Soviet lines. That represented almost half of the approximately 100 divisions available to the British, American, and Canadian headquarters at the time. The plan was considered by the British Chiefs of Staff as militarily unfeasible due to the anticipated 2.5 to 1 superiority in divisions of Soviet land forces in Europe and the Middle East by July the 1st, when the conflict was projected to occur. Most of the offensive operations would have performed by American and British forces as well as Polish forces, and as many as 10 divisions of the German army remobilized from prisoners of war status. Any quick success would be caused by surprise attack alone. So, here's what I'm getting at. Back in those days, Russia had in numbers a superior land mobilization ability. Today they do not. Don't think for 1 second, folks, that the British and the United States elitists have not forgot about Operation Unthinkable. Don't think that they have completely thrown it in the trash can. Remember, the governments of this world are not operated by flesh and blood, but by wicked spirits in high places. But you see, back then, Russia didn't have any nuclear weapons. Now, subsequent discussions. There was somewhere in here they were even talking about dropping nukes on Russia. All right, let me see if I can find if is there anything in here about that. So, what has changed? Well, what has changed is, you see, the Russians learned about this from Guy Burgess, which is why they built so many nuclear weapons, even more than what the United States even more than what the United States has for sure, and they even developed what they call the dead hand system. You probably should look it up. I've talked about the dead hand before. So, this war will eventually lead to nuclear annihilation. That's what's going to happen. Now, whether it will happen as a result of Russia invading Israel, it's very possible that Russia could lose the war with Ukraine, pull back, and then begin to continue with their colonialization of the Middle East that they started with Syria, and then invade Israel. Okay. There are some more who will have authority to mandate vaccines globally. And I think I might be finished with this particular video. Keep paying attention to what's going on. Make sure that you understand that this world will come to an end, that the seed that Jehovah chose will smash the head of the serpent, and will be done in this way, just so you do not forget how it's going to be done. Do not believe the deception of your Gentile preachers. Let's see. Shatter with a rod of iron. All right. Now, look. Look at where this is. You have a Revelation 12. You have a Revelation 19, Revelation 2, but in Psalm 2. Now, it's necessary to use Psalm 2 as the beginning point. Verse 8, I will make the heathen your possession, and the uttermost parts of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, you kings, be instructed, you judges of the earth. Serve Jehovah, not the Lord. Serve Jehovah with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish on your journey, when his wrath is kindled but just a little bit. All right? Okay. And that is at the return of the triumphant Messiah, Moshiach. I gotta go back to try to find his other scriptures. think it's in Revelation 2. Let's look at it that way. Now we will see right here in Revelation 12 and 15. He will rule them with an iron scepter and shatter them like a potter, just as I received authority from my Father. All right. Now, once again, okay, here it is, right here. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. Now, let's look at what it says in Strong's Concordance. She brought forth a man-child who was to rule the what? The Gentiles with a rod of iron. He's going to strike their heads. Now, Moshe spoke of it, the same thing, in Deuteronomy 30. So let's go there. Wait a minute, hold up. I'm already there, Bible Hub. All right, let's go to Deuteronomy 30. Way down towards the bottom. And if you don't use Strong's Concordance, you'll never see it. I think it's here. Whereas in 32, 31, 32. Oh, we'll just go along here. Watch this. Long-haired. Deuteronomy 32, verse 42. There it is. I thought it was in 30. 32, verse 42. This is in the Song of Moses. Now, folks, you got to understand. The Song of Moshe. Verse 42. You should read the whole thing, but I have to go, for time's sake. I said, I will raise my hand to the sky and say, I live forever. And I'm going to whet my glittering sword and make my hand take hold of judgment. I will render vengeance to my enemies, and I will reward them that hate me. And I've showed you in previous videos that Catholics and Protestants all hate Jehovah. And in Martin Luther's treatise concerning Hashem, or Hashem Mephoresh, you can read the treatise and you will see yourself that he hates that name, Martin Luther. Martin Luther blasphemed that name, and he is, Martin Luther, the father of all Protestantism. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword will devour flesh, and the blood of the slain of the captives from the beginning, for revenge. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold up. King James Version is at it again. Rosh, head. Let's go each word here. Okay. Perhaps leader. Upon the enemy. Now, is this 42? Of the slain, captives, here we go. The hairy head of the enemy. Now there is another translation. Remember, he's going to strike their heads with the rod of iron. We just read that, right? Now watch this. If we go to Deuteronomy 32:42, and this time use, is it New International Version? 42. Sorry it's taking so long, but just be patient. Okay, we'll go back to long-haired heads. All right. Which one is it? The heads of the enemy of the leaders, New International Version. New Living Translation, it was the blood of the slaughter of the captives of the heads of the enemy leaders. English Standard Version would be from the long-haired heads of the enemy. All right? Is there any more? From the heads of the leaders of the enemy. New American Standard Bible, from the long-haired leaders of the enemies. NASB, from the long-haired leaders of the enemies. 1977, same thing. Legacy Standard Bible, from the long-haired leaders of the enemies. Amplified Bible, from the heads of the leaders of the enemies. On and on and on you go. Now, I hear it says the bare heads of the enemies. My sword will cut off the heads of the enemy. All right. Your Jesus is the long-haired head of the enemy. Now, you can try to refute that if you want to, but remember what Paul said, it is a shame for a man to have long hair. Okay, so Yehoshua did not have long hair. That was your long-haired leaders who hated Jehovah. All right, so once again, like I said, pay attention, beware, be ready. Be ready to exit this land, to leave the lands that you're living in, and to make the great migration to Jerusalem for either a blessing or a curse. We are all going to have to go there whether you want to or not. That's what I've been trying to tell people around me. Now, I was telling me, no, you don't understand. You can't stay here. You cannot stay here. You can store all the food and the victuals and equipment that you want. You cannot stay here because once the nuclear devices are detonated over the entire earth, something even worse is going to happen. And that is, the two witnesses are going to make themselves known and will bring plagues of no rain upon the earth for 3.5 years, and the existing water will turn to blood, and other plagues. Why are they going to do this? They're going to do this to force the Gentiles to bring all Israel back home. They are the messengers that are going to gather the elect from the four winds of the sky back home to Israel. You can choose to reject what I'm telling you right now, but that's exactly what's going to happen, and you can either prepare for it, prepare for the exit, or you can be forced to exit and be one of the 5 foolish virgins that has the door of inheritance slammed shut in your face because you were late. The choice is yours.